How's it, everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm testing out a sort of newish Babolat string. It's a rebranding of a string that's been on the market out for a long time, and it's been a while since I tried the previous rendition of it, and I was very curious to try this new version. So today we're checking out the Babolat RPM Hurricane. Let's check it out. So the RPM Hurricane used to be called the Pro Hurricane Tour. I'm sure many of you tennis enthusiasts have heard of it. Pro Hurricane Tour has been on the market for a very long time. It comes in that iconic sort of clearish yellow color. It has been used on the ATP and WTA tours for a very long time. A lot of my friends like it. One of my good friends in Japan uses it in a whole reel, so I used to string it for him all the time. And I did try the Pro Hurricane Tour in that yellow color back maybe 5 years ago, and I did not like it at all. It plays similarly to RPM Blast. I'd say it has a little bit more pop than Blast, but it's still nowhere near crisp and lively enough. And for you guys who have been following my channel for a while, you know I like crisp and lively strings. However, Babolat has not only renamed this the RPM Hurricane, they have actually claimed that they've changed the formula a bit. It's supposed to play a little bit firmer, which could be good news, could be bad news for some, because I thought the original Pro Hurricane Tour was already pretty stiff, and it's supposed to play a little bit more control oriented, but the signature shape remains the same. So this is the shape. It's basically the same shape as the RPM Blast. It's like an octagonally shaped kind of gear shaped string, so the edges are not really sharp, but it's meant to slide and snap back to provide amazing spin and control. The RPM Hurricane comes in that yellow color, but it also comes in a new white color, and it comes in 130 and 125mm gauges. So it's been a while since I've tried Pro Hurricane Tour. I've tried it like 2 or 3 times, so I do remember what it feels like. I'm a little bit skeptical going into this playtest, but I did want to check this out because I heard that RPM Hurricane is supposed to play a little bit differently. So I got the white color of the RPM Hurricane. Usually lighter colors are supposed to play a little bit crisper, and since I tried the yellow color in the past, I thought I would try the white color since I've never tried it. I got it in my Babolat Aero Pro Drive. This is the 2012 edition, Roland Garros French Open edition. I haven't used this racket in a while, but when I used to use Pro Hurricane Tour, I tried it in the Pure Drive. So basically the same setup as I used to try it at, and I've strung it at 54 pounds. That is pretty tight in a dense, thick frame, stiff frame, but I do like that stiffness and I do want more control because this is a very powerful racket. So RPM Hurricane, I'm going into this playtest a little bit skeptical because I didn't like the original, but it doesn't hurt to keep my hopes up. So let's jump on the court, let's try out the new rebranded RPM Hurricane. But before that, if you guys like this content and want to see more, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's get into the pros of the Babolat RPM Hurricane. I've only tried the yellow version of this string back when it was still called the Pro Hurricane Tour, and I didn't like it at all. Maybe I've evolved as a player, but I think this white version plays much better. Further proof that color makes a difference. Babolat claims they have changed the formula for this string, but I didn't expect a big change, but boy was there a huge difference. I didn't like Pro Hurricane Tour at all. That string was muted, dead, and I couldn't hit for power or touch. The new RPM Hurricane played much more lively, and I felt very connected to full swings from the baseline. This still isn't a crisp string, but I definitely felt more command over my baseline game than Pro Hurricane Tour. My favorite part of this playtest was easily my forehand ground strokes. Even in my Aero Pro Drive, which can be too powerful at times, I felt in complete control on aggressive swings and returns. The string has a nice low trajectory, so I didn't feel I had to take anything off on my returns. But this string really shines on baseline rallies. Anytime I got a waist-high forehand, I would crank back and let it rip. These aggressive forehands sailed low over the net but had so much pace and penetration that I caused my opponent to hit late at times. I play with basically the same people every weekend, and they were so impressed with the pace of my forehands. Consistent command is the term I would use to describe the experience on baseline rallies. Even the best control strings I've tried, like Tourbite, Hyper-G, and Cyclone, have some erratic trajectories, but I never had that with the Hurricane. I felt in complete control the entire time, which is rare. I was honestly very surprised at the level of control, but I was equally impressed by the feel. The feel isn't super lively, but I was expecting something dead like original Hurricane, so I was pleasantly surprised. The string bed has a rather boardy feel, which might bother some people, but I didn't mind it. I do think this string will underperform in a flexi control frame though, because those frames won't get the pop to unlock the best aspects of this string. When I strike the ball on both ground strokes and volleys, I get a nice firm response, but the ball feels like it comes off the string bed a bit faster. This new white version plays much more lively than the yellow Pro Hurricane Tour that I remember. This liveliness made me feel more connected to every shot, especially my volleys. I wouldn't say this string is great for touch and feel. In fact, I hit a fair bit of my angle and drop volleys in the net because of the lack of response. But for placement volleys, aggressive punch volleys, and transition volleys into the net, the Hurricane performed better than par. As good as I felt blasting ground strokes from the baseline, I felt equally comfortable transitioning to the net because I could take a stab at the transition volley and the firm control would drop the ball deep inside the baseline and I could get up to the net no problem. Once at the net, the RPM Hurricane was a joy to play with. Much like ground strokes, I wasn't ever worried about sailing volleys if I didn't catch it clean. The firmness of the string bed made me comfortable stepping in and punching volleys. By doing so, I could hit decent pace and get the ball to land deep and stay low. Although I would regard my net game as superior to my baseline game, I sometimes make silly mistakes at net because I try for too much or I become too undisciplined. This bothers me with a more springy and soft string because if I swing even slightly on an outstretched volley, I would sail the ball long. I had no fear of this happening with the Hurricane because it was so stiff. I could punch or swing at volleys and the control would keep the ball in the court. The original RPM was touted for having exceptional spin potential. It is often compared to its more popular cousin, the RPM Blast. This new Hurricane delivers on its name and provides great spin potential. I already touched on the topspin from the baseline, but this string also shines on aggressive slices. When I can step into my slice and take an aggressive sidewards cut, I could see the ball curve in the air and bounce sideways. The firmness kept the launch angle nice and low, and even defensive slices felt great, provided I could put my weight into it. The stiffness did hurt me if I was ever forced to hit off the back foot. The spin potential on serves was fine, but it wasn't as great as something like Tourbite that has sharper edges, or Lynx Tour which just deflects more. I'll talk about this a bit later. My favorite serve to hit was easily the slice serve because I could twist my body and get decent pace while also providing a nice sliding slice serve. The kick serve was fine, but I wasn't getting as much kick as I had hoped. But again, the control played a big part in my confidence. I like firm strings because I can swing out without worrying about hitting errant serves, and the RPM Hurricane is about as stiff as they come. I'm an aggressive swinger even on serves, and this string complemented my playstyle and personality well. Overall, I was not a fan of the old Pro Hurricane Tour, and I was expecting to hate this string, but this new RPM Hurricane formula caught me by surprise, and I would even go so far as to say this string is a contender for my top 5 strings I've tried this year. But of course there are some flaws with it. So now let's get into the cons of the Babolat RPM Hurricane. Although I love the firm feel, this string might be too stiff for some. I played with this in my stiff AeroPro drive, and if you have even the slightest bit of arm pain, do not use this setup. I could feel a lot of vibration on off-center hits, especially when I hit near the frame. It's interesting because I do believe this type of string, much like RPM Blast, performs best when put into a stiff power frame. The stiffness can corral the power and provide good control for those who can generate power and also gets added power from the racket. But this is only recommended for advanced players who have the proper swing. If you don't have the proper mechanics, you could seriously injure your arm. I also noticed a big drop off in power on off-center hits. This sometimes hurt me at net when I didn't catch a reflex volley perfectly. I ended up hitting a lot of reflex volleys in the net because the strings didn't give me any help. Playing defense was also rather difficult with such a string. I couldn't gauge my defensive lobs and slices well, and it was hard to transition from defense back to offense. To be fair, this rarely happened though because I was almost always on the offensive with this string. Another downside to having such a firm response is that the strings don't have a lot of movement. The Hurricane snaps back fine, but since my kick serve motion isn't as fast as my forehand, I couldn't provide as much topspin as I wanted because the strings don't displace too much. A softer poly with more give will bend back more, thus providing more spin generation. My kick serve motion doesn't have the same acceleration, so I couldn't generate good kick unless I really snapped my wrist. This caused me to clip the frame quite often, and my kick serve didn't feel natural when I was forcing more pronation. But my flat serve was easily the serve I had the most difficulty with. The Hurricane is so stiff that my flat serves didn't have the usual punch even with the Aero Pro drive. In fact, I struggled just to clear the net. I think my flat serve percentage was less than 10% with this string, so I think it goes without saying that the RPM Hurricane is not a string you would buy for its power. The stiffness makes this a control string throughout, and if you are a beginner or intermediate player who doesn't have the fastest swing, the RPM Hurricane is not for you. And lastly, although RPM Hurricane felt pretty lively for such a stiff string, I would not classify this string in the crisp and responsive category. I felt quite a bit of vibration on my arm on every hit, but I didn't have the subtle vibrations I needed for hitting touch shots like drop shots and angles. This string was phenomenal for hitting precision ground strokes and volleys, but I wasn't as comfortable going for low percentage finesse shots. This string allowed me to dominate my opponent from the baseline rather than use my crafty and deceptive front court game. So the only real cons I had with this string was the stiffness. The durability and tension maintenance was great, so maybe you can drop the tension if you need just a bit more power. So who is the Babolat RPM Hurricane for? It's for players who have a well-established baseline game and can provide their own power. This string will give them the much needed spin and control to keep those shots inside the lines. You also need a healthy arm and sound mechanics to avoid injuring your arm with the RPM Hurricane. This is one of the stiffer strings I've reviewed on this channel, right up there with TourBite and ReString Zero. But since I have a healthy arm, I actually really like this string. This was easily the biggest surprise for me this year because I was expecting to hate this string based on my previous experience. I'm going to keep this strung and hit with it a bit more. So now let me hear from you guys. Have you tried the new RPM Hurricane as well as the original Pro Hurricane Tour? Did you notice as big a difference as I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and also recommend me another Babolat RPM string. Thanks for watching this review of the Babolat RPM Hurricane string right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.